And we're back again. We're friends. We stream sports. And we are here for you. Connor, it's October. Like, I didn't know what to call the episode. We were talking in pre-show. I can't believe it's October. Can you believe it?
You know, no. And when we were talking about show titles, thinking about Rocktober, but we're not going to talk about the Rockies tonight. We're going to think of maybe Socktober, but I don't like wearing shoes. Maybe Mocktober, and Mocktober could be the fitting subtitle for tonight. But, you know, it's just wild to think that we're at October. That's for sure, Rutledge.
Yeah, I do like a good Socktober. I will say I do not own very many plain socks in my sock drawer. Those are my, like, job interview socks and everything else. Like, I wore Darth Vader socks the other day because I just wanted to.
I have presentation socks whenever I present for my for the job that pays me money to stream sports.
Yep.
I do have special Orlando City purple socks that never go with what I'm wearing, that I always wear when I present. Well, I will only wear them when I want to present well.
Would you say that you excel when you use your presentation socks and you make a solid PowerPoint in your presentation?
Amen. Yes. Well, only when I wear my red power tie is when I make the PowerPoint. I excel in my socks. My red power tie leads me to my PowerPoint. But I guess PowerPoint number one of the night is there's two teams left, and there's some storylines off the court that are worthwhile talking in the NBA bubble.
Yeah, I'm going to boot us into the game here, and then we're going to talk about, would you pay $20 for a cup of coffee?
You know, that seems a little steep, Rutledge. What do you think? Would you pay $20 for a cup of coffee?
You know, when I think about, I've watched a lot of coverage of the NBA players talking about the bubble. What I would do, it's like, I'm a big, gotta have one black cup of coffee in the morning guy. That's just how I sort of start the day, and that's how I feel ready. Just the one cup, ready to go. 2 cups on a bad day. And I think I would pay it if Jimmy Butler had it, especially if now, you know, that's if we're friends. Like, if I'm not cool about that, it's like, nah, dog, I'll take my business elsewhere.
How much do you think Jimmy Butler is charging KCP right now for a cup of coffee? It's got to be more than $20.
It's got to be ridiculously more than $20. I think he was charging like $50 for lattes or something.
Yes.
But yeah, so so I would pay that. Now, you know, they are in Disney World in the bubble. We've seen very much up and down. They're staying at Coronado Springs. So Connor,
Tower.
Right? We live in the Disney region. We're not in the bubble. We tried. We honestly have tried to get in the bubble. But where do you get your Disney cup of coffee? If you and the wife hit the parks, or if you're just sort of like, I feel like getting a weekend treat, where do you like to go?
You know, I will first share the first hot take of the night. Rutledge, you're back into it. We're back doing this thing. We got our first hot take of the night, and it's not that Ronan just about ripped the microphone out of my ear, but it's that I go off property to get my cup of coffee from Disney because I don't really like any of the coffee joints at Disney.
Ooh, that's a hot take.
That is so hot, hotter than the hot cup of coffee that I have. But whenever I would go study for my graduate school that I was going through, I would go to Starbucks and I would get a blonde roast. Starbucks, you know, for full sponsor integrity, one of the reasons that we don't have Starbucks as a sponsor is because I'm not a big Starbucks fan. I wouldn't take Starbucks as a sponsor, and I don't take Starbucks as a sponsor because I'm not a huge fan of their coffee. But the light roast is not burnt just enough to have it be tasty. What about you, Rutledge?
I would also like to take this time to say my name is Rutledge, and I like being sponsored more than I like disgraining another coffee thing. So while Connor doesn't want to be sponsored by Starbucks, please send me your product and I will wear it and drink it while on the air, and use my shower thoughts to promote your coffee. My favorite cup of coffee is a little bit of a selfish plug. So my favorite resort in all of Walt Disney World is the newest one of Disney's Riviera Resort. I think that place is just super cool. And they have a little coffee shop on the second floor. They call it Le Petit Café because it's French. And I have very much enjoyed drinking my one black cup of coffee from the coffee that they serve there. So while I know that wasn't in the bubble, because they don't have basketball courts. They don't even have a convention center. I highly recommend getting that.
At the Riv.
At the Riv. It's a good place. Speaking of thoughts, I had a thought this week during my shower thought of the week. And we're in the NBA Finals. We're going to talk in the second half a lot about Lakers Heat. And we both wanted Lakers Heat, and we have it. It's there. It's here. But I had a thought about LeBron James this week, Connor.
Oh, go on.
So you and I are millennials. We're in our 30s. We work. And LeBron James has bounced around, right? Sometimes we pretend to work. LeBron James has bounced around a lot in his career. 2 stints in Cleveland, a time in Miami, now he's a Laker. As someone in his 30s as well, when I look at work, LeBron James is just your typical millennial employee. He comes in, he works hard, but he goes to wherever he wants to be. Cleveland, at home, not move away from the family, first job scary. Miami, move to the big city, be somewhere cool with your friends. And then, go back home for a bit because you miss your family. And now we're in the big corporation. Now we're in the big job, and we're just trying to close our career on a high note before we retire. So, he made it up this big organization. The last job, right? I think LeBron will end his... here's my hot take for the evening, starting it. LeBron's going to end his career as a Laker. I don't know if he goes in the Hall of Fame as a Laker, and we'll get into Laker legacy later. But I think LeBron went to the Lakers to end his career to play for, the most famous franchise of all time.
Oh, man. I'm glad the Packers aren't busting tonight, let alone my take.
You drove down the field and you scored that touchdown elegantly. It's almost as if you had something to say there.
It is almost as if I had something to say there. I think that it's important to always have those considerations in mind that you talked about, right? It's always important to think about your last job. LeBron James is such a big star. And, Rutledge, whether we... I love all this NBA talk, such a star-driven league. I love it. Because whether or not we like it or not, we as Americans, we might say we don't love the big star teams. We want the Jimi Hendrix of sports. We want the rock concerts, regardless of the band that the drummer for Jimi Hendrix played for in the previous tour. We want the best of the best, biggest baseball cards we can get. And this show, sports ratings do get impacted by the amount of stars, and it's really just the casual fans that will tune in. The NBA dodged a bullet in the finals as the wattage generated by not just LeBron, but also Anthony Davis in a Lakers uniform. It'd be one thing if they were Pelés, but in that Lakers uniform turns this regular rock concert of the NBA into that mega festival that's so loud that even Marvin the Martian would have to turn the volume down. So pumped about the finals. Lakers are back in it. Not the biggest Laker fan, but, it's always fun to have purple and gold in those finals, Rutledge. And glad that LeBron James has chosen to probably take his last NBA job with the Lakers.
Man, that was a solid take. You're not making me very, very angry with that take at all, Connor. You're right. We had just a nope. You are not doing that. It just helped. You're right, because the NBA season, the way the finals are coming is it was going to be. We had a possibility to have Nuggets Celtics. Nothing's wrong with that, but that's not the casual basketball that people want to see when they look to sort of escape into basketball land.
Mm-hmm. Amen, dude. Yeah. So that's excited for that. I know we've got to chat more later here, but let's talk some NFL, man. We're playing. We actually probably have the best Thursday night game.
That was a horse collar. Not to interrupt you, but that was watch this replay. That's a horse collar. What is that? That's all over the shoulders.
Flop. He's playing the wrong football. It's a flop.
To anyone that'll watch us, we hope you tune into us live. If not, remember all of our broadcasts are on Friend Stream Sports and YouTube. We love to show you our content. We load it up. We broadcast here live every Thursday night, and we load up everything on YouTube by Friday morning. So if you're watching on YouTube, check us out on Twitch. If you're watching on Twitch, check us out on YouTube. But we have a segment that we did early in the season that we call We did some picks in our very first episode of football where we played Chiefs Titans, where we picked our picks for the leagues. We're not going to go through those, but we're going to update you in a segment we call State of the Shield. And Connor, I am so excited for State of the Shield because tonight we're playing Saints-Packers because, well, you picked the Packers as the bust of the NFC. And for those of you that don't know, of course, Connor and I are friends, I have taken every opportunity to text anything from ESPN to Dan Patrick to Connor's favorite, Colin Cowherd, of anyone defending the Packers. So how does that make you feel that, like, every day you wake up to just Rutledge saying the Packers are good?
You know, first off, I think that the Green Bay Packers are 1 to 2 really one wide receiver injury away from needing a Cracker Barrel worker to
don't hate on the legacy that is Uncle Herschel. Those biscuits will bless you.
My apologies. Nevertheless, the Packers have started out well. I think we'll see. Maybe the Bears will have something to say about that for the Packers. A boy could hope. But, Aaron Rodgers is a special talent. I think that when the Packers drafted Jordan Love, everyone was like, oh, that made Aaron Rodgers really mad. There was actually an interview that came out recently with where Aaron Rodgers said that what he does from time to time is actually will pretend in his headset that he can't hear the play call. And although I definitely believe that more than one quarterback does that, I mean, let's be real here. Tom Brady probably has already done that many, many times to Bruce Arians. Probably did that many times to Josh McDaniels. But to come out and say that on a national interview, he might have been mad about it, but to me, that the scary thing outside of being scarier than that juke I just put on your defender there. Hope his ankles are okay.
Yeah. Wow.
I think that the big thing to consider is.
I missed that tackle.
I'm going to get this screen game for the win here. He's in that California cool, I'm going to do what I want to do mindset. And, I've been wrong so far, but it's definitely been neat to watch Aaron Rodgers do his thing. But, Rutledge, that's my pick, and I've been much kinder to you about the New Orleans Saints as you were saying that they were going to just take everyone to town, and they've really struggled so far. You need to defend that, or maybe not defend that.
I was hoping you would forget that that I was with the Saints. For those of you that as we're in our first year of this, Connor only gets revenge once. To get revenge from Connor is kind of like the episode of Family Guy where Brian shoves Stewie in front of the bus, like right before they go to credits. So I know you've been biding your time, and I watched a little bit of Saints-Bucks, and I will say after Saints-Bucks, I was like, all right, they're fine. And then Michael Thomas got hurt, and I was like, well, that's not good. And then ever since then, and I'm not one to, and I know the reports came out like Drew Brees' arm is tired because they lost to the Raiders. By the way, sidebar, that Raiders stadium is amazing. That place is so cool.
Place is dope. Can't wait to go there.
The Death Star, I know, right? What an ultimate dude's trip to say that you went to Vegas and an NFL game.
And to a real live Death Star.
Yeah, and to a real live Death Star. And to watch John Gruden wear a visor indoors. Like, it just all works out.
Yes, it does.
So here's my thing with the Saints. We are in the most crowded stadium for 2020 right now with the Saints in this Madden environment. And I think not having fans will get there. The best take I ever watched, and as a Seahawks fan, I believe that our stadium, dang.
That's the second touchdown for Mr. Allison. Rutledge.
Is that the receiver that you think will get hurt?
Probably not. I mean, Devontae Adams definitely needs to stay healthy for Green Bay to continue to play well.
Have you thrown to Devontae Adams yet today?
No, I don't think I have.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, all right. So a point there. But as I go on, the Michael Thomas injury, they seem a little out of sync. Yes, Alvin Kamara is there and they signed him and I'm happy for that, but I'm worried. Luckily for them, their schedule is very doable. Atlanta is a total mess. Carolina's turning into a total mess. The 49ers have a lot of injuries. You know, they just have the Bears and the Bucks coming up in a little bit. And I think they can still make a playoff run. I think they can still get hot at the right time. I think Drew Brees has to improve a little bit. You know, he's a little older. He's got to stretch it out. But looking at their schedule now, there's Niners, there's Broncos. They play the Eagles. Their hardest game, they have the Bucks once again, and they have the Chiefs. That's a really doable schedule, Connor. So I very much think
themselves in position.
They can put themselves in a position, but as far as that goes, I think it's going to be a little dangerous out there because the MVP is coming. And
so you're buying it. You're buying that this is the year for Russ to be the MVP.
This is very much the year because, and I watched a take someone saying, oh, like Seattle's defense is not as good. And I watched our recent game against the Cowboys, and I watched the Pats game on the edge of my seat. And Seattle's defense is doing enough. It is not the Legion of Boom defense that carried them there, but what it is that the offensive line got a little better, and Russ is able to do a little more. And DK Metcalf, besides that not paying attention catch, which he'll learn from real quick, they have a lot of the pieces all together to make it work. But it's not just that. They're letting Russell Wilson throw long balls. He, 2 back-to-back games, had just thrown a moonsault pass that just goes right to DK Metcalf and right into the end zone. And you know that play's coming, yet it happens. He looks so good. So, as a Seahawks fan, which we have a bumpy franchise history, our last good quarterback before Russell Wilson was Matt Hasselbeck, who was pretty decent. He was good, right? But now to see that we have this elite caliber quarterback, I cannot wait. What do you think about the Seahawks this year?
You know, I think that the Seahawks are most definitely,
Woo!
You know, they're always in it, right? The way the NFL is set up is for the best teams to regress a little bit, right? Put that along with the injuries, you know, I think that it's pretty certain, you know, San Francisco is going to regress. The team to really be, and remember, this is the guy here, you're talking to the guy who picked 3 teams from the NFC West to make the playoffs, the Rams, the Seahawks, and the 49ers. But the Rams are going to have something to say about this division as well. I know what happened in Buffalo, and we're going to chat about Buffalo here briefly in a moment. But, you know, Seattle's going to be in it in the end, and so is San Francisco, and so is LA. One of those teams, because there's 3 really good teams in that division, one of those teams is going to have to go on the road. Now, I think as good as Russ is, you know, his supporting cast around him might not be strong enough to, you know, win those tight games there at the end. Seattle might be that team that is the one kind of having to go to the cold Green Bay, right? Yeah, it's important to remember, even though there's not going to be many fans this season, you still go into Lambeau in December. That is not where you want to be playing. So I think they're really good, but I think they're also in a really good division.
There you go. How do you feel about the Bills?
The Bills are they're close. I think that they are close to being very they're close to really making me think that they're for real. And you know, I think Josh Allen seems to be taking a big step forward, which is awesome for Josh Allen. Season is still early. Unfortunately for the Bills, the Patriots are making this division a lot more difficult, right? A lot of people kind of thought Patriots weren't going to be all that good this year. But they seem to be pretty dang good. Their next 5 games, they're playing the Raiders, which, even though I'm a Raider fan, probable win against the Raiders. Mm-hmm. Titans, very important game. Chiefs, probable loss. Jets, probable win. And then Patriots is going to be yet again another very important game. So halfway through the season, Buffalo could at best, could be 7-1. Probably will be 6-2. But if they're 5 or 3 and or worse, I think it's appropriate to ask questions of Buffalo. So I think I'm not sold on them yet, but you're starting to keep an eye on that stock to see if it goes up any higher or higher.
I'm with you on that, Connor. As we approach the 2-minute warning, I just want to give one quick shout out as we close our NFL to take the last 2 minutes to talk about college football, to say I am beyond shocked, surprised, and without a doubt just utterly frustrated with how bad the Atlanta Falcons are. Dan Quinn, I don't think it's a matter of that. I don't think they need to implode it and trade everyone away and pull a Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson from the 90s like the Cowboys back in the day when they were great. I think it's a matter of coaching, and the coaching is failing. You have a talented receiver core. You have a defense that has a capable possibilities, while not superstars, if they're led properly. And then you have the best receiver in the game of Julio Jones. Now, I think he's going to get eclipsed if DK Metcalf keeps doing what he's doing, because they're very similar body types. But I think I want to just give our shout out to Terrell Wilson, that Atlanta Falcons, let's do something different. Let's move on.
I guess the question needs to be, will Atlanta get out of October with a win?
That's a solid question. We'll have to later pull their schedule. So, college football. So we get into college football this year is wild.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What the heck do you think happened to OU?
I think finally, so I am the secret that I don't think I've ever shared in our friendship. I am an OU hater. And part of this comes from my high school years. I became a big fan of Texas football. I jumped on that bandwagon during the Vince Young, Mac Brown championship run, even 2009 when Colt McCoy got hurt era. So I was hook 'em horns as a kid because South Carolina was down. So that's who I was kind of watching. They were on TV all the time. And still not Jamal Adams. But I have never really bought into Oklahoma's hype because their schedule doesn't do well. And take to the playoffs when they lost to Georgia, while it being in overtime, they've never really produced good power. If they didn't have Jalen Hurts move over and transfer from Alabama because he got benched because of Tua Tagovailoa, I think that last year the Oklahoma wouldn't even been relevant.
Wow, what does not relevant mean? You're talking 3 losses, 4 losses, not a bowl team?
Bowl game.
Oh, that was almost a pick and almost a catch.
Massive. Bowl game, which bowl game would have been after Christmas Day but before New Year's Day. Not a championship appearance, and making a quote-unquote run for a championship appearance, but losing to Kansas or something, choking in a gimme game that they would need to boost them. So that's where I really think they would have been last year.
Got it. Yeah, what's interesting about OU in the Lincoln Riley era, I did a little research, did my research for sure. In the 7 losses in the Lincoln Riley era, no team has scored less than 37 points. Or 38 points, pardon me. So every team has scored more than 37 points in the Lincoln Riley era, and this is a big play. I'm going to finish my take here right after I score this touchdown. 4th and goal on the 1, doing the thing. As when you're playing football, you have your team, you have to be able to win games in a variety of ways. You have to be able to score 50, and you have to be able to win by holding the defense to under 21. And I understand it's the Big 12 and it's all this offense. But Oklahoma will never be a national. They might make the playoffs because they've got so much talent on the offense, but they will never be able to beat. Put 2 back-to-back weeks of beating a Clemson and an Alabama or LSU. Or whatever team is in the playoffs, or even in Ohio State, because they're just not set to win that game where the defense can match the offense player for player, and they got to win 28-24. They got to win 24-17, something like that. So, not surprised that OU took the loss, and definitely, but that is throwing a little wrench into the playoffs, which is nice. Another team that's throwing a wrench into the playoffs, Rutledge. And I know we got 28 seconds, so we'll make these calls quick here. Miami Hurricanes turnover chain, are the diamonds in the turnover chain real?
They are so real They are beyond real. De'Aaron King looks awesome. You know, I know that it was probably hard for you to watch them just destroy Florida State, but they are, so I want to mention a very important date, which we're going to have to talk about very soon. October 10th is going to tell the college football schedule for a lot of teams because Miami plays Clemson and Oklahoma plays Texas. And that day, first of all, I really wish I could just be on my butt that day. That is a classic. Drew Brees, you are so slow. That man, he got boilered there. Did you see that? He boilered up when he got took that hit.
He got boilered down, actually. Breeze did, and I just got a dirty look from my wife. For our listener who might not know, Betsy is a Purdue grad.
Shout out to Betsy. We know a Purdue fan.
Shout out to the cradle of quarterbacks and the Purdue fan.
Let's see how this works. Oh, taking a big shot. So, really quick, October 10th. So I think Miami and that Clemson game obviously is going to be game of the week. I think Oklahoma, Texas will be big as I go into my picks later. But I think they're for real. I think they have a good shot. I know you and I love to dance to Turnover Chain, stupid loud. So we're going to be singing Turnover Chain on October 11th as I think they make their run. What do you think?
You're supposed to beat bad teams by a lot of points. Unfortunately, Florida State is a bad team this year. That makes sense. I still have the ball, and I know we're about ready to go into halftime hot takes, but there was one topic that we didn't get to, but I just have to say, Mike Leach equals Pirate Bulldog.
Yeah. I think we have time to do a little Mike Leach take as we kick off and then pause for halftime hot takes. But
yeah. So no, I think Miami is Miami. I'm going to chat about Miami here in a minute. Miami is good. I think they've got questions to ask Clemson and Notre Dame for sure. And I got to know, Rutledge, what do you think about Mike Leach? Mississippi State pulled off the big upset last week. Is he a championship level coach? He's been a lot of places, but is he a championship level coach?
He is a champion's headache, and I take that in the sense of that there's a really good story about when Mike Leach was offensive coordinator for, I believe, Oklahoma, and he had his players drop a fake play script on the field to let them get points and stuff on a half, to which Texas lost that game, but Texas won that game. He drove the coaching staff bonkers. He's an innovative coach. He's hilarious to watch as he talks. He'll say some really weird stuff. He taught a class at Washington State, but I don't see him winning a championship in the sense of that Mike Leach keeps landing in these jobs where he doesn't have all of the championship resources. He needs to be in like a Bama or a Michigan and Michigan, I think, will never hire him. He's not their mold. He needs to be in this big, massive program that already has like a massive budget and a huge athletic facility, so he can just draw up plays and get the talent, because his play scripts and everything he does is built to just make runts look good. Look at Michael Crabtree. Had an amazing game against Texas. Mike Leach wanted him to be ranked. They didn't win the championship that year. Washington State. Gardner Minshew got some NFL attention because of his time at Washington State, but they choked in a game at the end because people figure out his system. So I think Mike Leach is still not in the right job to be a championship level coach, and I don't know if he ever will be.
Yeah, if he couldn't have pulled off a championship at Texas Tech, even a conference championship, I don't think he's going to pull off a conference champion or a national championship at Mississippi State. He's in the right footprint in the Southeast for sure, but I think Mississippi State on their best years could be like a fringe New Year's Day, Peach Bowl type team. But to do that, both Auburn and Bama have to be down. They would have to at least make the SEC championship game, and that's tough. You're right. A lot of the stars have to align, and Mike Leach is kind of a quote new money coach, and new money coaches don't get hired by old money programs. I mean, Rich Rodriguez, they tried it in Michigan, and he wasn't a Michigan man. Mike Leach probably wouldn't ever fit in Alabama. Maybe he'd fit in at a place like an Oregon. But he's already had his time in the Northwest. So, Mike Leach, interesting cat, and has definitely made the SEC a lot more fun, along with Lane Kiffin and coaching personalities. But a championship coach, he is not. So I don't know if you have anything else to say about that, Rutledge, but I think we can move on to halftime hot takes.
I think we move on to halftime hot takes, and this week, as we are football and Conner and I are junkies, and we talk about Miami, we're going to say, what is your playoff for the college football playoff? Who do you have going at it this year? What's your final top four for the year based on what you've seen?
Beautiful, and I'm going to answer this question with no Big Ten or Pac-12 teams, the teams who already played. So Clemson, they're in there, going to knock Notre Dame out of the playoffs. Clemson will finish undefeated, and which also would knock Miami out. I think Miami is a year away from being at least at this trajectory, from making real noise. But Clemson will overcome. Alabama, they'll probably play looser on the road this year because of the less fans on the road. So they'll have some less hostile environments to go into. And I think that will ultimately play into Alabama's favor, as they will be that team that takes on the persona of Nick Saban, which is one of just a completely controlling every element and aspect of the game all the way to winning. I do think, however, there will be a one-loss team if no Big Ten or Pac-12 teams make it, and that'd be the winner of Florida-Georgia. This pains me to say it, and this is going to be recorded forever. Can't believe I'm going to say this. I'll pick the Gators because they're led by a less emotional coach. Yet again, this is not the season for emotions. This is the season to overcome emotional things. And I just think Florida's got a little bit more of a steady hand than the Kirby Smart, although I love Kirby Smart. But I think that the winner of Florida-Georgia is a de facto playoff game. And then finally, an undefeated UCF. So UCF's going to run the table. This is the year of mayhem, hijinks, chaos, and the College Football Committee says, okay, UCF, here's your shot. So Clemson, Bama, the winner of Florida, Georgia, I'm going Florida, and an undefeated UCF squad.
Okay, Clemson, Bama, Florida, Georgia, and UCF at number 4. I'm
taking Florida. So Clemson, Bama, Florida, and UCF.
Okay. We're not too far, but I'm going to go a little different on you. I agree with you. I agree that I will not take a Pac-12 or a Big Ten school, because the Pac-12 and the Big Ten are like the people that just show up to the party after the party's been moving. Like, college football is here. We're watching it. I think the last line to come in was the SEC. But for them to start and have this weird later season, I know it's going to be colder for them and weather, but you had your shot. And when we said we were playing. And now you're trying to come late, but you're not going to be part of the cool kids club. I believe that Clemson runs the table. Like I said, October 10th is going to be huge, and that ACC championship game in December is going to be huge. But I don't see anyone sort of upsetting Clemson. I think Trevor Lawrence is going to build himself a good draft stock. Bama will come in at number 2. I think they run through. I think Auburn's just going to get better, so that game is going to be a bigger deal. I think the SEC has so much high profile, especially in the West, that it'll just be a big build for them. My number 3 is I'm going Texas. So October 10th, I mentioned October 10th. Texas is starting to look in good form. They've been trying to flirt with making some moves. They're starting to do some stuff. I think Texas gets through Oklahoma. I believe, like we've talked about, once again, I never believe in Oklahoma. Texas gets through Oklahoma, and their schedule is very doable after that. They take down Oklahoma in October 10th. Then it's Baylor. Then it's Oklahoma State, which they have to go to Oklahoma State, but no fans, no big deal. They have West Virginia at home. They go to Kansas to see Les Miles' shoe polish hair. They play Iowa State, which is going to always a possible upset alert, and they take Kansas State out in December, and they're done. So I think they make their run. I think this is good for the Big 12 to get a team in the playoff. We know it's wanting to be due. I think my number 4 is Florida or Georgia. Whoever wins that game, the Florida-Georgia game, but they have to play Bama close in the championship game. If Bama blows them to pieces and beats them by like 20 or so, they're not going to get in there. I think then you would have, after everyone and all the loss and all the ways, I think then with no Big 12 and Pac-12, Big 10, Pac-12 counting, I think you would see the loser of Florida Georgia at 5, and then I put the unranked UCF at 6. With it just being just a conference schedule, and the committee loves to do schedules, I don't think UCF has enough on the table of their schedule to say, hey, we beat everyone, unless they have their score is like what Miami did to Florida State. And they have to do that every week for the rest of the season. And they've already been doing that, and it hasn't gotten them anywhere. So now that Bama's not going to have beaten the Citadel this year, or Georgia's not going to have played a small school, or Florida's not going to have played like UT Martin again, it's just the pure conference schedule. This is what we've argued for college football for the past couple of years, and now we have that. So I think UCF needs to move conferences in order to really be considered. What conference that is, I don't know where they go. Maybe the ACC expands up a little more and lets them in, but I think they need to move conferences to get their shot, Connor.
We'll agree to disagree, and maybe they'll win and cover. Maybe they'll win and cover all their games. Well, that's our halftime hot takes. I know we got some NBA to talk about, or do you want to talk about Doc Rivers now, or not to lead into our next segment here, but do you want to do that now, or hit Q3?
Let's hit Q3 and talk Doc Rivers as we get kind of settled, because I don't have much to say on Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers, is he becoming the Mike Leach of the NBA? In the sense of that, and I will say that Doc Rivers has said some really good things in this time, and he's been a great role model of a man. Doc Rivers is an incredible person, so I'm not taking shots at Doc Rivers the person, but he had his run in Boston where everything was possible. They made some huge moves. They did really, really well. Brought a championship to the Garden. But then outside of that, he had 2 different LA Clippers strong rosters and did nothing with them. And now we're going to Philadelphia. Put out there tonight, Doc Rivers has signed with the 76ers. So I have lost belief. I thought he was going to do it this year. I know I've been quoted earlier this year saying like, hey, Doc Rivers, LA Clippers, Kawhi Leonard, we wanted the battle for LA to happen in the Western Conference Finals. We didn't get that, and because they choked. Part of that's on coaching. So what do you think about Doc Rivers, Connor?
Oh, Sac City. Doc Rivers, yeah, he's going to – I think that the championship has given him a lot of leeway. With Boston, he had that great number 2, or great 2 and 3. I mean, if you think about all the great players that he had, not just Paul Pierce, but the Kevin Garnett and the Ray Allen that was not the very old Ray Allen. And he had Rajon Rondo. Rajon Rondo was his 4th best player, and he did well. Now then he had to have Paul George. I think that just the championship is giving him leeway, which is probably detrimental to the 76ers. I don't think he's going to really crush it in Philadelphia, but I think that Devontae Adams is going to have grab this first down here. It's a player thing in Philadelphia, in my opinion. And I think that Doc Rivers is going to keep the 76ers right where they are. Unfortunately, the 76ers aren't trying to be right where they are. 76ers are trying to advance. And they just don't have the roster to do it. They got to make some moves, and they got to add some perimeter scoring. Everyone knows the deal on the Clippers, or not the Clippers, pardon me, anymore, the 76ers. I guess the best thing about this, though, is that now Doc Rivers, because he's going from one team with the colors of red, white, and blue to another team with the colors of red, white, and blue, he probably doesn't have to get rid of as many golf polos.
That's true.
Doc Rivers is a golfer, so maybe he stitches out the LA Clippers, just a regular old red, white, and blue polo, or maybe not. But that's probably the best news there about the 76ers. And unfortunately, his team in LA wasn't able to make it to the title, Rutledge. But there was another team from LA that was able to make it to the title, along with a coach that used to coach for LA, who is now the general manager of the Miami Heat. That's right, we're talking about the finals. Let's go. Let's go.
I am I'm excited for this series. I am. Oh man, it's so cool that we're here in the final. It's the NBA Finals, and it's the one we wanted. We wanted some Heat. We wanted some Lakers. What's your take on the finals, Connor? How are you feeling going into it?
And it's not just that we're going into it, right? We do have one game under our belts.
Yeah.
I think Miami's got an uphill battle. I think before the series, Miami had an uphill battle. The thing about Miami that is dangerous when you don't quite have you've got your number one player and you've got the plays that you run and things like that, but when you don't have that defined 2, 3, and 4, right? It can make defending more and more difficult because you have to really consider and work towards not getting this first down here. Good job, play caller. Whoever that play caller was pretty terrible.
I also want to give a shout out to, we just gained ourselves a viewer, so shout out to our viewer. If you are out there, want to jump in, leave us a message in the comments. We'd love to give you some recognition during the broadcast.
And you get merch.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, we don't have any merch, but if we had merch, you would get merch.
Right.
Before, I know we got some more thoughts here, and we're going to keep talking about in the finals, but Rutledge, let's hear it from you about, one of the fun things to do, and what, in my opinion, one of the really fun conversations to always have is to kind of think best teams of the NBA, things like that. Let's talk best Heat of all time and best Lakers of all time. And does LeBron James count for the Heat, and does Shaq count for the Heat or the Lakers? I want to hear your thoughts before you answer that question.
That is, I'm going to pick one per side, and I like that on the caveat of does LeBron James count? Because we're all going to have the conversation one day. I always remember when Shaq was on Jimmy Kimmel and he told him that he was going to go to the NFL, into the NBA Hall of Fame. He said, like, hey, by the way, what are you going to go in as? And Shaq picked to go in as a Laker. With the Heat, I'm going Dwayne Wade. And the reason I'm picking Dwayne Wade is Dwayne Wade was incredible. He won 2 championships with 2 completely different rosters. Well, he won 3 championships, with 2 completely different rosters. He also helped facilitate and bring together this amazing Heat dynasty. He is a symbol for the city of Miami. He just has put everything together for the Miami Heat. So I'm picking my greatest Heat player of all time. When I think of a Heat player, it has to be Dwayne Wade. Shout out to my Heat fan friend Christopher, who also agrees that Dwayne Wade is he embodies everything the Miami Heat is. He's an
international man for an international city, that's for sure.
Yeah. Who is your best Heat player, Connor?
Can I pick my second best Heat player? Just for conversation's sake. I mean,
sure.
Right, when you're talking about the Heat, beginning in with Dwayne Wade. I think another player, at least in recent memory, that not just you talk about the team, right? You talk about the city, you talk about everything involved there. And I would say that the next person, just in terms of the flash and the glitz and the glam, I'm going to go Lamar Odom. Lamar Odom is the second best, most important, maybe not best, definitely not best, but second most important Heat player of all time. He had his battles, he's had his struggles, he's played for both the Heat and the Lakers, but I think Lamar Odom is just an important person, and you can't tell the history of the Miami Heat without Lamar Odom.
No, I think that's huge. I think in the conversation of Lakers, I think with the greatest Laker of all time, I'm actually going to go Kobe Bryant. I put Shaq as a Laker. I don't think Shaq is a Heat or a Celtic or a Cav. I know it stung you when Shaq said he would have wished he would have stayed with the Magic for his entire career. Brings up childhood tears. But I think Kobe Bryant was the greatest Laker of all time because Mamba forever. I remember watching him. I remember one night I was sitting in a McDonald's in Statesboro in college, and Kobe Bryant was like 13 for 13 in his free throws and had this massive on the field percentage. And whenever that jersey went in his mouth, there was just no stopping him. Magic Johnson, of course, is an amazing basketball player, but he came from just a different era, and Kobe just made the game look, everything that he did just looked different. Even his last game when he was battered and banged up, he put up, I think it was 40 points?
60.
60. So correct me. I'm sorry for disrespecting the legacy. I think that's just one of the greatest. Mamba out. You know, Kobe Bryant is the greatest Laker of all time when the president quotes him at a speech.
Amen. All right.
So I take Kobe.
Kobe Bryant, greatest Laker of all time. I'm going to say that the greatest Laker of all time, I'm going to go Magic Johnson. I think what he did in the 80s with Showtime was so, I've been using this word, I'm going to keep using this word here, important. He was very important to everything going on with the Lakers, won the titles, but then also, I know he didn't have a great career as the GM, but he also was able to, he was the GM of the Lakers. He was the face of the Lakers. He still is the face of the Lakers. When there's big NBA stories going on, they're still talking about Magic Johnson's tweets. And they're not talking about him as like part owner of the Dodgers. They're talking about him as one of the greatest all-time basketball players ever. So I think he would be probably the number one Laker of all time, followed by Kareem. When you got to change a rule, just his career, when you got to change rules because folks are so good, that's amazing. And Kareem is probably the greatest actor tonight that we're going to talk about. Shout out to his time on the movie Airplane.
Yeah. That is true. He was on Airplane. Shirley, you must be joking.
Hey, don't call me Shirley.
No.
All right, so we've talked about D-Wade, Lamar Odom. You said you put Shaq as a Laker. I actually put Shaq when I did my top 5 of both Lakers and Heat. I put Shaq as a Heat because I wanted to put Wilt Chamberlain as a Laker.
Okay.
I think that is the big time matchup to really consider, right? I think in my top 5, just because you asked, I've got Jason Williams as the starting point guard over Mario Chalmers for the Miami Heat. I think that you got Jason Williams, Dwayne Wade, Lamar Odom, Chris Bosh, and Shaq. I think that team is very formidable and can do a lot of damage against Magic, Kobe, James Worthy, Kareem, and Wilt. Obviously, Jason Williams would definitely have his hands full with Magic Johnson, but Wilt Chamberlain versus Shaq would be a very, very interesting matchup for sure.
I'll take that. So now let's talk about, in our last 2 minutes, let's talk about the finals. And how I wish we could see that game. We might have to play that game on 2K one night, Connor. Those are just power lineups.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about the finals, the NBA finals. And I will say this: my blissful heart, not leaning my take, but the one thing is, as you talk about with the players, I think the one thing that he'd have a problem going into it is everyone tried to beat the Lakers a different way. Houston tried to do it small ball. Denver tried to do it where we outsped you. I even watched the highlights again this morning of the Heat trying to do it. And, classic French Stream Sports missing the kick. There's so much depth all together there's so much depth on the Lakers that when you try to beat them in a different way of basketball, they just go, okay. And it was just a classic. They were trying to block the paint and make Anthony Davis shoot last night, and AD just dropped shots. So I really think, you said David and Goliath with Nuggets versus Lakers. You ever watch The Simpsons interpretation of the David and Goliath?
Go on.
So there's a Bible study, and Bart is supposed to be David, and he's beaten Goliath, and now he's like the king of the area. And then there is Goliath 2, David's kid. So it's like David versus Goliath 2. and Bart gets beat up because he's lazy and fat and full of grapes at this point, and he gets kicked out of the community. They're ashamed of him. And then Ralph is playing a shepherd, and Ralph goes, well, looks like, oh, solid sack, got me distracted telling a story.
Go on.
Ralph says, well, looks like it's all up to Ralph. And he picks up a sling and starts walking to town where Goliath 2 is. And the next scene is Ralph's tombstone, and he died in battle. Because everyone thought, he thought he could do it, and he just absolutely failed. And that's how it feels kind of with what is going on with the Heat. Oh no, this is a huge turn point. Sack, and then a pick. The drama. So I think that I think the Heat are just kind of in trouble. It's not going to be the Nuggets versus the Lakers, and that was like a tiger playing with its food. But I really just don't know if they have the horses, and I'm worried for them. What is your take on the series?
Even before last night, you compared both teams, right? LeBron and Anthony Davis, most assuredly the best players on the court. Then you have Jimmy Butler's probably the next best player on the court, right? Then you've got a lot of players who I'd say Iguodala. I mean, he's a very impactful player in this series as well. But it's just the Heat had a lot and need a lot of breaks to go their way to win. I think Spoelstra is supposed to be a good coach, and Spoelstra can be a good coach, but he was a good coach when he had the big three. I could probably be a pretty good basketball coach. Give me an off season to watch film, and coach the big three, and just make sure LeBron James has enough touches throughout the game, and make sure that there's enough perimeter shooting. Talk to the GM. Okay. Then game one happened, and not only did Jimmy Butler hurt himself, not only did Bam Adebayo get hurt, but also Goran Dragic, starting point guard, got hurt. I had a coach in football that said, very aptly, he said, your best plays tend to work when your best players are in the game. And I think that it's very important just to always be thinking about that. And that also made me think about, when your best players are out. When I was a sophomore at Wheaton College, when we made our big-time run to the semifinals, we had a running back named Rocky Ging. And, oh, man, I mean, he was every bit of his name, Rocky. And, he carried the ball, got hurt in our quarterfinal game. And then we had to have our next guy up, right? Next running back in. Good player, but just wasn't the type of running back that Rocky was. What happened in the semifinal game? I think he was just terrible. He did not play well at all. The cohesion wasn't there. And I think it's just very important to, oh my gosh, I talked too much and forgot to play for overtime here. Looks like we're playing back in overtime.
This has been Connor's interpretation of Doug Peterson as we are going for overtime this evening.
Bill O'Brien. This is Bill O'Brien here. But I think that you've got the Heat don't have their best players.
I think I have a good summary for it, Connor, and I think you'll appreciate this. And I have this take. So we went to smaller schools, right? We did not go to the big colleges. And in football, you don't see your schools play, but every once in a while, your school gets scheduled to play basketball against like the big dogs, right? Mm-hmm. And last night, the game very much reminded me of in 2012 when I watched Georgia Southern play Duke, and they were in it for a bit, and they were hanging. And then it turned into exactly what last night turned into. It's just they adapt and they overcome, and you can't catch them. And like you said, you have to have your best players in the game. But last night, their best players were just trying to make up for the fact that they are who they are. And that's why you get guys get hurt, because they're sitting there and the Heat, while we want it to be, showed that they were sort of outmatched last night, and showed after a while that the game just sort of was taken away from them. We have Daniel J. Mogg, shout out, comment gives on Twitch, saying there are no ties. We are not playing for the tie here. We always play for the OT, and we love overtime here on Friend Stream Sports because it gives us more time for more content.
We love content. We love content almost as much as we hate ties.
Yes, we hate ties. I don't even wear a tie to work.
Yes. That is no good. No good on the ties. So, Rutledge, let's talk about something that I find interesting. I think our viewer Daniel J. Mogg would find interesting when I send him his merch as well. If you were to add one Marvel Cinematic Universe character to each team, well, who would they be, and what would their main purpose be on the team?
So if we're talking about, like, if you were to add them to a sports team?
Yes.
I would add King T'Challa. Why? He's extremely athletic. He's tall. He's limber. I guarantee they probably play a lot of sports in Wakanda as kids. That's going to be the athlete that you're going to want. You don't want to add Tony Stark. Tony Stark's a coach at best, but he's not going to help you win a championship. You need someone who's just a purebred athlete. Like that linebacker right there. Just a purebred athlete.
I think that the Miami Heat need Ant-Man. I think Ant-Man, Scott Lang would be a great rim protector. Would definitely slow Anthony Davis down, and would be a lot of fun, right? After the game, like, you could go do your time heist, to a time pre-coronavirus, go see your fam, and then go back into the bubble. Keep everything up, keep everything awesome, and I think Scott Lang would be a great addition to the Miami Heat, and probably maybe tip the series one way or the other. Not to tip my pick, but
right. We have to save that.
That is one MCU character.
We'll have to say that for the end with the winner on the pick. I agree with that. Another thing I want to talk about is overtime. You ever been to NOLA?
Oh, dude. Yes.
What is if we could go to New Orleans like today, what is your couple spots that you have to hit out?
First off, I would go to, First off, you gotta start out at Cafe Du Monde. I know that there's a couple cafes, things like that. They say they're doing their chicory coffee. Cafe Du Monde is legit. It's what's up. Second, after that, I wouldn't necessarily go down Bourbon Street, but the thing about it though is you kind of can't do a lot of the food. Oh, good win. Can't do a lot of the food in New Orleans without at least like crossing Bourbon Street. I would go anywhere that would give me the most insanely huge, overflowing shrimp po' boy ever, and then finish the night out with a nice cocktail at one of the mini cocktail bars. Nice little hurricane action.
There you go.
What about you, Rutledge?
I'm going to go, and I'm going to, of course, we're going to start the day at Cafe Du Monde like you. It's a staple. It's a classic. The powdered sugar on the floor says it all. Going to get me my one black cup of coffee. I'm going to go, and we're going to hang out in the afternoon at this place called the Napoleon House, which is not too far from Cafe Du Monde, and that's actually where Napoleon was supposed to be moved out of exile to America. It's very sort of old and kind of vintage looking. I would hang out there and get me a cocktail just up the street from it at a place called the Carousel Bar, which is a bar with like a rotating carousel in it.
Oh, yeah, I've stayed at that hotel. I've stayed at the hotel Monteleone, where the Carousel Bar is.
Yeah, huge fan of those places. Hit that up when I went up there in 2018. Had a blast. All right, Connor, the time has come as we close. Before we close, we would like to say, as two Floridians, this year is a unique year in sports in that the state of Florida has a chance to win the what we call 6 major sports titles. As we are both kind of...
Florida wins everything.
Florida wins everything. The Bucks have a decent team. Or we'll see. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFL, right?
The Lightning, Tampa Bay Lightning.
Congratulations to them. Just won the Stanley Cup this week. The Florida Gators and the Miami Hurricanes are both making power moves.
Oh, yes, unfortunately for both of those teams, they are making power moves.
Right? The Heat are in the finals.
The Heat is still on for now.
And then the most important of all, we cannot wait, but Orlando City Soccer looks like we may make the playoffs this year.
Vamos.
Vamos. Cannot win. All right, so let's close it out. We have to make our finals picks. What is your pick in the series, and who takes it?
Lakers in 5. There's been a lot of talking heads that are much smarter than me and spend much more time talking about sports than me. That as opposed to the Moses Malone quote of faux, 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 faux. Lakers are going to do it in 5, 5, 5, 5. Gentleman sweep. He'll nip them once, but Lakers in 5.
My head agrees with you, but I'm gonna go bold here. I'm gonna say my never back down, don't back down. Do you believe in miracles? Yes. Pick is I'm gonna go bold. I'm gonna say Heat in 7. My head says Lakers in 5, but my never back down is gonna say I think somehow Spoelstra figures it out. There's a lot of age on this Lakers roster, just like the Packers could get affected. I think the Heat can get affected by some injuries. The Heat do have some injuries, but I think they can recover. But I think the Lakers just have a little bit of age to them, and they could get tired. These young kids could take them. They're gonna go, and I know that the Heat are sitting there with their big face coffee. They're watching film, and I think it'll just be different. So I'm taking Heat in 7.
Well, by this time next week, we should know. At least either I will be right, or you could be right. So We'll know by this time next week. Other than that, we're Friends Team Sports. I'm Rutledge. I'm Connor.
And thank you for coming out. Have a great night.
See ya.